Now, I've been asked pretty consistently by viewers and friends and even some family which affordable watches actually wear well on the wrist. Because we've all been beaten down by spec monsters that look just unbeatable on paper, but when you get them on your actual wrist, they just don't wear quite right. They feel slabby, top heavy, or just generally wrong on the wrist. And after handling a lot of watches this year, I've come to understand some things that I didn't before, notably that the best affordable watches, they aren't the ones with the biggest spec sheets. They're the ones that just mould correctly to your wrist, because when they do, they get wrist time. You can have a watch with every spec in the world, but it doesn't fit quite right and you will never wear it. So today I have curated a list of 7 watches under £500, around $600–650, that just wear like an absolute dream. Some of these have arguably put more established brands to shame, especially when it comes to geometry and proportioning, as well as specs and finishing, so stick around for that. Now, I do have to lay some obvious ground rules for the video going ahead, so you understand what I'm basing all of this on. First of all, proportions first. You have to have a sensible thickness, a compact lug-to-lug, and cases that curve. Second is the wrist feel is just more important than the numbers. We're talking end-link drops, weight distribution, and crown comfort. Then of course, refined finishing. You need clean, crisp brushing that transitions nicely into polishing and such, otherwise you get watches that have sharp, jagged edges that just aren't that comfortable. As well as this, identity matters. I am not going to be talking about any blatant clones. Subtle inspiration is fine, but general originality is important here. And then obviously the price ceiling, it's got to be £500, about $650 or under. I'm absolutely hard capping. It might be like 20 or 30 above, but nothing more than that. Although I will mention for at least 1 or 2 watches that the RRP might be higher, but generally they're always on sale anyway. So keep that in mind. Some other things to keep in mind that I think a lot of other people doing lists like this don't account for, the sort of pitfalls of most of these lists, is as follows. First of all, straps, they lie. Right, a thick, stiff leather strap can make a comfortable, slim watch feel big and bulky. To fix it, you need to buy a second-hand, thin, flexible, comfortable strap that will suit your wrist and everything, and then just switch it out. As well as that, people don't seem to understand very often that the case geometry, the way that it works into itself, the actual shape and proportioning of the case is more important than the diameter and such. You can have a 38mm watch that wears bigger than a 40mm watch because it's got an integrated bracelet, or female or male end links, or the links don't drop quickly, or just the shape of the watch makes it look like it wears bigger. And then obviously there's the slab sides and the flat backs. You want a floaty feeling watch. You want to look for a gentle mid-case curve. You don't want it to really stand out from your wrist and be thick enough for someone to dive from. I will say for the watches that need it, if they need new straps or bracelets or clasps or whatever, but without further ado, let's actually start the video about 3–4 minutes in. Starting off, we have the Clements Monroe. Now this is a diver, it's from a micro brand in the UK, and proportioning wise, it is 37.5mm, about 10mm thick, and it has a 45mm lug-to-lug, coming in at just about £500. But I've got to say, out of all of the watches I have reviewed recently, this wore just a treat compared to everything else. It wears compact and it's planted with a case that curves into the wrist. The brushing and polishing, it breaks and feels way above the price. The bracelet tolerances are tight enough to pass for mid to high tier Swiss at a glance when it comes to the price range. Although there is of course a caveat, and that is that if you're flat wristed like me, you probably want to try it on first because the first few links don't articulate particularly well for just flat wristers. It's more suits a round wrist. But even with that out of the way, it's a rugged, compact and very well finished and generally made and priced watch, but more importantly, it's thin, the proportioning is perfect, and when it's on your wrist, unless you're looking down, you don't even notice it's there. Next up, we have the Heron Mirabelle GMT. Now this is a elegant daily watch, but also a GMT hybrid. It is 37.5 millimeters, 11.8 thick, although 10.6 for the case, excluding the crystal, and it has a 43.5 millimeter lug to lug, coming in at about $690, so the most expensive watch on this list. Now this has, talking about the actual watch, the most clean, elegant, sophisticated, but classic and basic dial just ever. I mean, it's just gorgeous. Look at the B-roll and everything I've taken of it. But it's mainly the case shape and the proportions that just make it wear so well. It's got a C-shaped case, and I wear a lot of C-shaped cases. I quite enjoy them. They just wear like treats, man. And put on top of that, this watch comes with genuinely a real deluxe leather strap, which is so comfortable. It's thicker where it meets the watch and then it thins out. It's just a perfectly comfortable, perfectly proportioned watch. And even though 37.5 millimeters might sound small to some people, it wears bigger. So I think that it would work for most of you watching. Of course there are caveats, and that is just, it's not a case shape for everyone, but if you like a C-shaped case, this is exactly what you want to go for in the price range. It's subtle, it's wearable, it quietly fits under your sleeve, it's thin, it's just a treat on the wrist. Next up is the Seiko Prospect Baby Alpinist, as it's been nicknamed, also known as the SPB155. Now this is a fieldy everyday watch, and it wears at 38mm, 12.9 thick, so definitely thicker than others, and a 46mm lug to lug. It's also £650, although it's pretty often on sale for about $550. Now this has a balanced 38mm case, it's got short lugs. It just generally, for a Seiko specifically, wears an absolute treat. Because I find a lot of the Seiko 5 and such, they just wear a bit bulky unless you have rather large wrists. For the average guy, they're just a bit much. But this, the Baby Alpinist as it's been nicknamed, just clean, it fits your wrist perfectly, it molds right onto it, and it goes unnoticed. Of course, the caveat is that the MSRP sits above our usual cap, and the thickness can feel a touch stout on smaller wrists, so try it before you buy it. But it's often on sale, and it's just, when it comes to Seiko in this price range, in my opinion, probably up there with the Seiko Presage being by far the most comfortable that they offer. It's got that classic Seiko wearability and sizing, it's got the brand prestige, it's genuinely decently made. It's not as good as the micro brands on this list because it's a big brand, so they have to put more money into everything else. But it's still plenty good enough, industry standard or better in the price range, and it just wears a charm. Moving on is the Zelos Helmsman SS. Now this is a sporty value banger, coming in at 40mm, 12.5 thick, 11.5, excluding the crystal, and a 46.5mm lug to lug, also coming in at about $530. Now this on the list is probably both the most well-rounded and also the best value pick, but it's also the most stand-out pick. Now what I mean by this is that the finishing is shockingly crisp for the price, but it's also that it has 3 types of finishing with a very geometric case, so it can really stand out. But even though that's the case, it lines up, it catches the light perfectly, it feels expensive. The bracelet and clasp, they're tight, they're confident, they're very, very well finished, and they're easy to put on and use. And on wrist, it's assertive without being top heavy and just wears better than any other sports watch in this price range I have tried on. If you're more of a minimalist, I understand that design is a lot, obviously, textured dial and everything. But if you want presence, refinement, value, all about under $500 or just over $500, it's an absolute steal, especially that bracelet and the micro adjustment clasp, probably the most comfortable I have just felt from bracelets in a while, even in the higher price ranges. Next up is the Santura Novus. I have the Blue Sunburst, and it's more of a refined daily, but also a bit more dressy than others. It comes in at 38mm, 10mm thick, and 44mm in lug to lug, coming in at just about $500, but I believe on sale for about $440 at the moment. Now this watch is very much so about restraint, it's a very basic dial, but it still stands out nice, you know, Blue Sunburst, you can't go wrong with that, especially in a steel case. It's got good finishing, but again for this video, the specific thing I want to say is it's so thin. If you look at the side of the watch, the way that the lugs drape and everything, it's perfect on the wrist. However, there is a massive caveat with this one, and that is that the strap it comes on, it's not that comfortable and it doesn't wear too particularly well. So if you're going to buy this, I would definitely recommend getting a thinner strap. I think something more flexible, half as the thickness, and probably a bit smaller would probably suit the watch a bit better. A nice taper, maybe 20 down to 16 or something. But all in all, it's a genuinely refined, well-made watch that wears very nicely and is just a treat to look at on the wrist. Next up is the Brew Metric, which is a design-forward, compact wrist feel watch, and yeah, it comes in at 36mm, just under 11 thick, and 41.5mm in terms of lug to lug, but it wears a lot bigger and works perfectly on smaller and larger wrists alike, coming in at $475. This is probably the most unique design on the list. It has a very rectangular case that drapes immediately over the wrist. It's very comfortable, as you can see from the footage I'll be showing of it. The way that the bracelet is integrated and everything, it just works perfectly on the wrist. Honestly, it's so comfortable, you could just call it a bracelet with a watch face rather than a watch on a bracelet, if you know what I mean. And even though it's a design piece, it still sits low, it still sits comfortable, it has crisp brushing, and it punches way above that fashion watch image. Now, the caveat is that it is more about style and looks rather than the specifications, so it's not particularly stand out when it comes to all specs, you know, water resistant and movement and such. It's a Mecha Quartz. You can get the automatic version for a bit more, but I'd personally say the Mecha Quartz is definitely better value and the better choice. But it's here because you can't really get many watches at this price range that have such character and their own design philosophy, even though yes, it's based on a vintage Omega. It has its own design philosophy and such. It's actually based on, as you can probably tell from the coffee bean on the dial, coffee machines. That's what it's based on, retro coffee machines. It's just a really cool watch that wears really well for a very good price. Last but not least is the Orient Komatsu. This is a no-nonsense daily driver, and in my opinion, out of all the big brands, is the go-to dive watch, easily over a Seiko 5. It is 41.8mm in diameter, although you can get smaller ones, which I prefer. It's about 30mm thick and about 46.8mm in terms of lug to lug, but again, you can get smaller ones if that's too big for you. It is $580 when it comes to RRP, but they're often on really big sales down to about $350. Now this, when it comes to big brands, when it comes to affordability and when it comes to just general value for money, bang for your buck, this is the watch to go for. I made a video on this very, very long ago, probably one of my oldest videos actually. And I mean, it's just the comfort king for the money. It's got balanced dimensions, easy crown action, solid daily robustness. It's not trying to be flashy. It's just a diver that wears right for most wrists and does it looking good. There is a caveat that the bracelet and clasp it comes with is pretty bad. If you get it on leather, it's also not particularly good. I would definitely recommend getting your own strap or bracelet for this yourself. It's definitely a good option to go for because the case is very well made, but everything else not so much. But that depends on the default and which one you get. Obviously, if you want it on leather, it comes on leather. If you want it on a bracelet, it comes on bracelet, and there's lots of different variations. I particularly like the sort of transitioning colour of the teal blue. I think that's gorgeous. But it's a dependable, just default watch that anyone can go to. You can always get them for a good price, and it's always a good pick. It looks good, it's robust, and again for this video, it wears an absolute treat. Put all that out the way, which one would you go for? And also, if you have any watches in this price range that you think wear as good, if not better, than the ones I have said, I'd love you to put it in the comments below. Maybe I'll put them in a part 2, including your comments, give you a little shout out. We shall see. And if you enjoyed this video, please do check out some others. Like and subscribe if you did. And never forget, time keeps ticking, so use the time you have wisely.